Hello and welcome to the World Happiness Festival. It's my great pleasure to have two world experts with us today to discuss character strengths in the classroom. So it's my pleasure to offer a very warm welcome and to introduce Ryan Niemiec. Ryan is a leading international figure in education and research and the practice of character strengths that are found in all human beings. He is education director of the VIA Institute on Character and that leads the advancement of the science of character strengths. He's an award-winning psychologist and author of 11 books so far, and I imagine more coming out anytime soon. So a warm welcome to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Orla. Wonderful to be here with you.
Oh, that's great. And dear Jaume, so may I introduce Jaume Gallifa? He is an expert in self-leadership, in flourishing with mindfulness and character strengths. He's co-founder of the Flourishing Circle, and he's a certified coach specializing in transformational change and flourishing. Jaume, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you. To meet you and Ryan.
It's a treat. So maybe we can begin, maybe I can begin with Ryan. I know that as education director for VIA, you've been involved heavily in this constant research of discovering what is the impact of character strengths in education. And I'm thinking specifically of teachers here. So I wonder, could you walk us through the kind of the headline findings? And then we can talk about how teachers might integrate that into their teaching.
Sure, happy to delve into that. And I'm so happy to be here with you, Orla and Jaume. You guys are two of the most exceptional human beings. So it's great to just be part of this with you all, and to everybody here listening. It's just very exciting what's going on around the world with happiness and well-being and spreading it. So in terms of character strengths, I've been kind of boiling down the 700 studies now that have come out in the last 15 years to two words. They're about building well-being and about managing problems and adversity and suffering and struggles in life. And we can unpack both of those and spend hours doing so, but to move into the domain of what's the research saying about education with character strengths, there's a lot of exciting findings on the well-being side and the adversity side. Like on the adversity side, character strengths helps to reduce classroom friction, classroom problems that are happening among students. On the well-being side, it helps to increase school kind of enjoyment. So students are happier when they're tapping into their character strengths. Better achievement, which is what so many people want out of the classroom, but also what a lot of parents like myself want out of school. For me, speaking for myself and my three little kids, I'm less interested in the achievement element, although that's important, but more interested in the social element. For my kids especially, and character strengths are connected with better friendships. They make friends want to connect more with one another, more acceptance among peers. So to give you a couple specifics, there was a study done that looked at what are the character strengths that you find most desirable in a friend. And so they asked this of young people, and they found that it was strengths like honesty, humor, kindness, and fairness. Those are the strengths that came up highest in that sense. So we could go on and on about the research and character strengths in education. It's one of the two main domains. That and the domain of organizations and business are the two most prominent domains in terms of what is being found in terms of the science. But I want to share more specific about this domain for teachers, is that any teacher can feel very empowered to tap into their own character strengths and help the character strengths of their students. And I think of this across 4 different levels. It just shows how it'll show how versatile these character strengths are, and that somebody very new, a teacher brand new to this work, can begin to use. And so one level is the embodiment level. So every teacher can embody their own character strengths. They take the VIA survey, for free to measure their 24 strengths. They learn what their highest strengths are, and then make sure they're bringing those forth in their teaching, in their daily life. So if they're high in appreciation of beauty, then create more beauty around them in terms of plants in the classroom and in terms of artwork and other things that they can see and appreciate. If they're highest in curiosity, to make sure they're using that curiosity over and over again every time they're in the classroom. So to bring those into their work. Another level is the education level. So the idea that character strengths can be taught to the students so that you could teach any of the 24 character strengths that are in human beings. So you could teach self-regulation to students. You can teach fairness. You can teach love. You can teach creativity and so on. A third level is integration. And that means whatever your approach is as a teacher, however you see your students, however you see them as change agents and able to change, you can bring character strengths into that approach. So if your natural approach is one of kind of questioning them, then you can bring your humility to help question them. If your natural approach is to be very solution focused and trying to solve problems, then you can bring your character strength of hope and honesty to that. And then the fourth level of integration of character strengths in teaching is what I think of as the interaction model. And that is, naturally there's going to be students that will fight with one another, and you'll have struggles with certain students, conflicts and so on, good things, not so good things. But you can always look to how character strengths might help to solve the problem. It might be that sitting down two students and really tapping into their social intelligence is going to be helpful for them to connect more and to see the perspective of the other student. So to not lose sight of the character strengths are part of any difficulty and can help with any difficulty in the classroom. So those are a few quick thoughts on character strengths in teaching.
I love that. That's a whole festival in itself to go through those. It's
Right.
extraordinary, Rich. Thank you so much for setting that out so clearly for us. And while you were sharing, I saw Jaume responding to what you were saying. And Jaume, I know that just in the last year, you've taught 160 students in a class, and that you bring strengths and practical application of strengths work into your students. So could you share a little about what your students are saying in terms of how they feel they benefit from learning, from recognizing, from practicing, how it helps them?
Well, my students, they enjoy, first of all, getting to know their character strengths. One of the first interventions I do in class is to invite them to do the VIA survey. So they get familiar with their own strengths and the strengths of their friends, colleagues in class. That helps also them to get familiar with the language, which is very important because that accompanies them for the entire year. I teach for self-leadership for a semester, and that gives them an opportunity to also to discover strengths in other students, to develop appreciation for other people's strengths. And I'd like to share an anecdote that illustrates this. Most of the time they kind of like and enjoy to get to know themselves, and sometimes they kind of hate it because they would like to be in a different way, And in a self-leadership class, this is very, very important to go through this kind of pain, because it gives me an opportunity to enter practically into the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So they have an opportunity to discover that strength is something that you can cultivate, and that the self personality, it is kind of a work in process. It's not something like this is who I am and nothing else. And this is a very good start for them to start kind of cultivating their ability to achieve and to enjoy being in class, which is not always the case, when they go to math or statistics or microeconomics or other things, is not always so enjoyable. And you know, the first day in class, I tell them, look, this is not about learning something. This is about getting to know yourself, getting to develop yourself. So this class, it is not about a topic. It is about you, and this is kind of the line for the entire course. I would like to just give an indication of other practices that I do with them in class. By the way, all these practices I learned from Ryan. I started to follow his courses on character strengths interventions in 2018, and I have been following trainings with him since. Something they enjoy is to do the 360 assessment. So they get to realize that other people they are close with, they appreciate their strengths. And this is very important in terms of developing positive emotions.
So can you describe the 360-degree assessment for those who don't know what it is, Jaume?
Well, they go to have a discussion with their parents, with their friends, with a list of 24 character strengths. So they use this form for these close relationships to describe the way they see them in a very practical terms, in terms of, you did that, so I could see that you are strong in whatever, creativity. And this is a very, very sort of rejuvenating experience for them. So they get to know each themselves through the eyes of other people. They have an opportunity to discover the blind spots. Maybe other people they know them in a way that they didn't know, and it also gives them opportunities for development. Something else that they do is to discover how to use character strengths as a resource. So every time they face a problem, I teach them how to go through a process so they kind of develop a positive outlook, and at the same time using character strengths as a resource. I also teach them how to use character strengths to reframe a situation. And this is very anecdotal. I have a student who came to me. He was overwhelmed because her boyfriend, he was in another country and she didn't know how to do. So we look at the character strengths profile, and we could see that she was very strong in critical thinking, So she was looking at all the pros and cons of moving to another country and, changing her life and her career. So I could see that hope and humor was very low in the profile. So I asked her, how would you experience this situation if you would have these character strengths on the top of your profile? And she kind of smiled, and she realized that she could take it in a different way, and she moved. She went to Germany. Now she's enjoying a new life there. And I could go on and on and on with this type of interventions and how frankly, they changed the life of my students. They are very grateful at the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm. And I love how practical it is. And Ryan, to come back to what you said, both in nourishing our ability to be happy and well, and for moments of facing, challenges, adversity, huge setbacks and disappointments. So I wonder, with the kind of levels approach that you spoke of, are there, what kind of practices would you put in the mix for teachers to apply? Because often what happens is teachers might listen and go, well, it's okay for you, but I'm actually very busy and I have a curriculum and grading and inspectors. So what is something that a teacher might do that's a simple way in?
Yeah. Anything that we're talking about here with character strengths, it can it woven in with that integration approach for teachers, so where they don't have to feel like it's one more thing or it's a new course they have to do, or a 10-week event or something, but that they can just weave it naturally in. So a couple different examples in building off what Jaume was talking about. Two things I think every teacher should know, and that is strength spotting and strengths reframing. And so and there was even a couple recent studies that found strength spotting to be particularly important for teachers in the education context. So the strength spotting is simply the way it sounds. It's really putting on strengths glasses or lenses to look for the character strengths within the students. When the student is expressing something, to be able to spot the strength in their story or in the interaction that they have with others. So we usually will consider the approach of naming the strength and then explaining how you saw the strength in the student. So a student that is standing up to to a bully on the playground, we might say, Jocelyn, I just wanted to point out I really saw so much bravery in you in standing up and defending your classmate there. I'm sure it was very nerve-wracking for you to do that and to take that kind of action, but I'm really impressed with that, and I know your peer is impressed, is benefits from that as well, and so I appreciate seeing that in you. So you spot the strength and you explain what it is that you saw, and so you could do that in the middle of a lesson plan. You could spot the strength not only in the student but in the lesson itself of the protagonist in the story that you're reading. You could spot it in your teacher colleagues, your principal, and so on. And then, as Jaume was mentioning, strengths reframing, I think that's also crucial, where we can, it's so easy to put children in negative boxes. This child has the disability, this child has ADHD, this child has a learning disorder, this child is depressed, this child's abused, and on. We have all these boxes that we put people in. And of course, that can be very helpful in lots of ways to get, the right treatment and so on. But it's always coming at a expense of missing what's best in the person as well, and it's not always a balance in that sense. We're missing what's best about this child, and we could see through, if we use a character strengths lens, we can actually see the goodness in the child despite some negative behaviors or things going on. So, for example, if we see a child who is kind of running around wildly on the playground and being very kind of disturbing of others, there is some wildness there, sure, but there's also a lot of zest and energy there. And maybe that child can put that energy into artwork or into music or into conversations or something. So we could see the character strength in that behavior. Another child might be very stubborn in their opinions or certain ideas, a certain way of doing something. And the teacher can say, oh yeah, there's stubbornness there. I'm not going to deny that, but it's also perseverance because they're really sticking with it in a strong way. And then there's a child that's very inattentive, just completely seems like they never pay attention to things. And we can say, well, maybe there's a lot of curiosity there. Maybe because they're curious, they're thinking about other things. Sure, yes, there is an attentiveness, and we got to make sure we're thinking about that as well. But there's also a natural inclination for curiosity, perhaps, with that student. Somebody that's teasing others. It's very easy to see, especially with bullying behavior. It's very easy to see that as a negative, and it is. But also, that student is probably displaying a lot of humor. And they have humor probably as a high character strength. So can that be channeled in a better way? Can the teacher approach that student and say, gosh, you have a great strength in you of humor. It's not appropriate to be saying the things you said to your classmate here, but you do have a wonderful strength with humor and being able to be funny and to laugh a lot and to want other people to laugh and to tell jokes. That's a great strength of character. How can you point that strength in more healthy directions or in a way that's not going to make other people feel bad or feel less than, and so on. So those are some ways that you can kind of weave in strengths reframing in that sense.
Oh, I love that. And it's so practical, as you say. You don't need an add-on. You don't need any extra time. It already happens woven into the classroom day. It's beautiful. I remembered as you were sharing examples, I remembered I was teaching a summer school last year, and there was a child who was like question after question after question after question after question. And you could see some of the kids were rolling their eyes and I said to the child, wow, your curiosity is amazing. And it seems like you love learning. And they actually got a shock because normally the grown up just says, "Shut up, would you?" Like, or just stop. And the child was really taken aback. And I was like, curiosity is an amazing thing to have, helps us the whole way through our lives. And yeah, it was just a very heartwarming moment for a child to be seen and not to be judged negatively for who they naturally were, you know. So it's beautiful. Thank you both. And then, as both of you, so I've been in your classrooms. I have been a student, as you've both been sharing and teaching and kind of creating circles of learning. And you both bring so much heart to the classroom, the lecture theatre, wherever you are. So I'm curious about, how do you keep your, you know, your, like all of us had an aspiration to teach at some point. So how do you keep your aspiration and your volition alive? What is it that you do to nourish yourself? So maybe, Jaume, could I start with you?
Well, I am going to be very practical and down to earth. The first thing I do is to take care of myself. Because, you know, when you go to the class and you are there from let's say half past 7 in the morning to half past 7 in the evening, you need to be kind of fresh. So your students, they can feel that you're still a cool guy and you have a sense of humor and you can appreciate their strengths and put your strengths classes and everything. So this is the first thing. And then you just said it is about showing that you have some heart. You know, the content of the class is, they can find it in a book, but if you care about them, if you appreciate their strengths, they can feel the difference. And I could explain plenty of anecdotes about that, but I think we do not have the time. But believe me, heart is very important. And of course, you love to see how they flourish, how they thrive, how they develop their self-esteem, how they became more, you know, self-efficacy is you can see it. Well, plenty of positive outcomes.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Jaume. And Ryan, how do you either protect yourself from burnout or keep all the passion well stoked for teaching?
Sure. Yeah. I just wanted to do some strength spotting, Jama, and what you were just saying. I could just really see the love that you have. The love for your students, that not only in content of sharing the heart, but also just coming from a very genuine, authentic place of love and heart, and just think that's beautiful.
And Jaume, every time I strength spot love in him, he laughs at me because he goes, "Oh, love is much further down." I'm like, well, it's arising now, Jaume.
That's
I
right.
absolutely saw that too. It was so loving. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you have such good, just in this experience here, I feel so much gratitude from you, but also the perspective, the wisdom that you have, seeing the bigger picture of what we're doing here and offering additional examples off of what each of us are saying. So that's that perspective, wisdom, strength that is beautiful, and it makes for a wonderful experience. I'm having a wonderful time, so I hope that is too. But for me, to kind of keep me invigorated and zestful, and zest is not one of my top 5 or 7 strengths. I think it's tied for my highest strength, which is hope. And I love the strength of hope, and hope is all about seeing to the future and seeing possibilities. So I love kind of creating new goals, new things to look to. I want to appreciate things that I've done or that I've been involved with, people I've been able to work with, but then also keep looking to what else can I do to try to help others, help the world, help in some way. So that's that strength of hope that can see the future or possibilities, but then also is there's a sense of confidence to be able to reach those particular goals. I also think, just on an even more practical level, doing, all 3 of us do, which is something called the mindful pause. And that's a 2-step approach. Any teacher can use it right in the classroom, before you go into class and so on. And that is to 2 steps. One is to pause and to just breathe, just to feel your in-breath and out-breath for, say, 3 breaths, like 10, 15 seconds. So it kind of short circuits our wandering mind, our thinking, our analysis, all of our to-do lists. and we just let it go and we just breathe. That's step one. And then step two is we conclude the 15 seconds by asking ourselves, which of my character strengths might I use right now? Because we've just kind of cleared the path to be able to notice what's best in us. And then we prompt ourselves. And we know we have a lot of wisdom within us that if we just prompt it a little bit more, we can tap into it and reach into it. So which of my character strengths might I use right now as I'm turning the door, walking into my classroom, or as I'm taking a short break at the end of lunch before I go see the students again, or as I'm walking from recess back into the building, or as I'm driving home and I have to transition. That's always a tougher one for me, to transition from work to home. So I use that mindful pause a lot, especially at transitions from work to then my family, so I can be more present to my family. Using it, certainly at difficult moments. COVID's brought a whole lot of unique stressors and unknowns, and the recent war has brought a lot more stresses as well. So to be able to take mindful pauses and create a little bit more peace in myself, to just pause, find some centeredness amongst the chaos that's around me or within me, let things go, be present. That's a really helpful strategy too. And it's really great because it's 15 seconds. It's not like you have to do a 5-minute meditation every morning. It's great. No more power to you if you do, but you can find mindfulness and strengths in these moments. So
yeah, for me it interrupts, especially if a day is generating difficult momentum. And it feels like when I do mindful pauses quite a bit during the day, and it's like it aerates the whole day. There's just this spaciousness that when you're simply in reactive mode, going from task to task to task, I feel like our vision, our perspective just becomes more constricted. And those pauses give us a space to really establish our presence so that we can really be there for ourselves, for our students, for each other. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your generosity, your kindness, your enthusiasm for this. Both bring such zest to the subject. And for those watching, you can stay in contact with Jaume and Ryan. So Ryan, you can connect with at viacharacter.org, and you can take the strength survey there and see what are your signature strengths and what are phasic strengths that pop up when you need them. And Jaume, you can reach at flourishingcircle.org and connect with his offerings in terms of mindfulness and character strengths, self-leadership, and much more. So my gratitude again to you both. Thank you so much. This was a treat.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Ryan.
Take good care.